The Giants, I mean, my goodness, I mean, what a storied franchise you have. I mean, it's just an incredible operation. You know, how would you describe your culture that you have, and what are you trying to bring to the culture maybe that wasn't there before?
Yeah, I think the culture historically has been so strong, and the business side especially, where we have most of our leaders have been there 25, 30 years. They've grown up with the organization. This goes back to what I was saying about earlier with analytics and people that maybe, some would say, well, we don't want to live in the past, we want to live in the future, so let's not talk about the legacy of the Giants. And I think that is something that we've changed in the last year, where we not only want to celebrate what we've done in the past, but we want that to be something that to hold the current players to a higher standard. That you're putting on a logo that means a lot to this city. It means a lot to the history of baseball, and you have to carry yourself to that standard. And I think that's something that our new lead, Buster Posey, who's in there running baseball, believes very strongly in. That we do have a unique history, and it's something we should celebrate and also hold ourselves to that higher standard.
I can't wait to talk to you more about how you lead, Greg. But first, I want to take you back a little bit. What's a story from your childhood that really shaped the kind of leader you are today?
I've been so fortunate to have parents that I would say have always set the example every day in how they live their lives. And but not tell me how to live mine, and that goes back to the earliest days. I was never really pushed into Franklin Templeton. It was something that was a choice, that I made when I was young. But I think some of the, and I think back to the early days, and like most adolescents, very competitive, very sports oriented, playing all sports. And I remember I was in a tennis tournament with my father, and I was probably getting a little bit too vociferous on getting upset or getting a little emotional in a match we were playing. And he very calmly pulled me aside and said, "If I see anything like this again, we're walking off the court." And it just sounds like a little thing, but if you knew my father, he doesn't have to raise his voice. He didn't have to, when he told you something, it meant something. And to me, that's something I've always thought about in how I lead an organization and interact with people, that at the end of the day, you better keep your emotions in check, and you've got to be the cool-headed presence out there. And I think when I think about, if there's anything I could say about myself, is I don't get too wound up in stressful situations. I try to be that cool presence, and I think I owe a lot of that to just watching how my father has interacted, how he built the business with, also balancing 7 kids in a family, and how my mother, who married my dad before college, or before finishing college, had 7 kids. I had 7 siblings, and then went back, finished college, went to medical school, and was a doctor while balancing 7 kids at home. So I said, if you can do that, if those are your 2 examples, you're off to a pretty good start in life.
Yeah, I'm blessed to know both of your parents, and both of them are iconic. They definitely are, and you had to follow your father's footsteps, which is tough to do. How did you do that? And was it challenging for you? Or, I mean, it's challenging just because of who he is, but I mean, how did you develop your own identity and get that comfort?
I think it goes back to it's not always an easy thing to do, and it depends on the type of personality of that person, a leader, founder. That can you let go of the reins? And he did that with us at a very young age. Where and I think the other point is that we had a business that was growing very rapidly when I jumped in the early '80s. The business was kind of taking off. So that gave a lot of opportunity to do new things, have a lot of challenges, experience, and opportunities. And he was always very good about not micromanaging. I'm sure he disagreed with many things that I did, or my brother did, or my sister did back then. But he had a way of just kind of rolling along and not jumping in when appropriate, being there, being always the person you could go in his office and ask the question. But always had the right kind of temperament and approach in dealing with family issues.